3 long years I endured their silence. 3 full years of planning precisely what steps I'd take the moment they required my presence once more. And last Thursday, they delivered the ideal opening I'd been anticipating. Let me give you some context so you grasp why these individuals behave the way they do. My father, Winston, married Carol when I turned 8. My real mother passed away in a car crash when I was 6, and my dad chose to move forward. Carol brought along her son Reese from her prior marriage, and later she and Dad had Julia. That left me as the living symbol of the woman Carol preferred to erase from memory. For 2 decades, Carol ensured I understood I was only temporary in their world. It began with minor slights, forgetting to include my lunch for field trips, casually reassigning my room to Reese after he whined that his felt too small. Julia reigned as the flawless daughter who never erred. Reese carried Carol's bloodline. Meanwhile, I was simply Winston's leftover error from an earlier chapter. The breaking point arrived 3 Thanksgivings back. Julia revealed her engagement during the meal, and as I rose to offer congratulations, Carol ordered me to sit because no one cared to listen to anything I had to say. Winston remained completely silent. Julia chuckled. Reese remarked that I ought to feel thankful they even permitted me to share their table. That evening I walked out and vowed I'd never return without real power on my side. So when my phone erupted with messages last Thursday during office hours, I immediately recognized the pattern. Carol messaged first, instructing me to skip Thanksgiving since Julia labeled me a worthless embarrassment, and the whole group concurred. Winston chimed in next, claiming the sight of me disgusted him and I should keep away from their genuine household. Julia shared an Instagram post gloating that she'd finally persuaded Carol and Winston to exclude the failure, declaring it her greatest holiday present ever. Carol followed with another text, explaining they planned to inform the wider relatives I was supposedly in treatment for addiction, because that sounded more respectable than admitting what a disappointment I truly was. On Facebook, she boasted about her blessings in the form of her 2 wonderful kids, tagging solely Julia and Reese. Winston fired off yet another note stating my seat had already been moved to storage, exactly where it belonged all these years. Reese piled on, noting that even the cousins found it hilarious I wasn't invited, and none of them wanted me around. Julia capped it by mentioning Carol had begun burning my childhood pictures in the hearth and wondering if I caught the deeper meaning. Man, this household orchestrated a coordinated smear effort like they were conducting a tactical mission. They maintained separate group threads, solely focused on reminding one individual how insignificant he was. Julia genuinely broadcast on Instagram something like, "Best friend goals, I successfully got my sibling excluded from Thanksgiving dinner. Living my greatest life. Link in profile." And Winston telling his biological child that gazing at him causes nausea. Dude, that's literally your own reflection. You contributed half those genes, and the remark about the chair in storage. That isn't merely rude, that's borderline menacing. They gathered at the table like, "All right team, tonight's task, bombard this guy with soul-crushing messages. Julia, you cover social media. Carol, take Facebook. Reese, handle the cousin network. Mission, ruin his entire holiday season." What they failed to realize, for 3 solid years I compiled a very targeted dossier. Every hidden family truth, every falsehood Carol fed her religious circle, every written commitment Winston gave me prior to remarrying. Every incident from Julia's university days that she pleaded I keep secret forever. I possessed solid proof of it all. I arranged premium rush shipping. A single parcel headed to their address, timed to land on Thanksgiving morning. The sole message I sent to the family chat read, "Happy Thanksgiving, open as a group." That went out 6 days earlier. Thursday night, my phone began ringing non-stop and hasn't paused since. 14 unheard voicemails await me. Inside the delivery were 5 individually sealed packets, each directed to a specific household member, plus a couple of extended kin present at the feast. I'll reveal the contents of those packets in my following post. First, I have to digest these recordings. No matter how loudly they're yelling, I've spent 3 years waiting to hear every word. 3 years gathering documentation while they assumed I was passively enduring the mistreatment. This guy was strategizing like a grandmaster, while they fumbled through basic moves. Honestly, they weren't even at checkers level. They were munching on the pieces, convinced they were snacks. Happy Thanksgiving. Open as a group might be the single most threatening phrase ever built from innocent words. Overnight express arriving Thanksgiving dawn. That isn't mail. That's precision-guided payback disguised in holiday wrapping. And 14 voicemails. 14 separate moments of people grasping that the reject they'd been tormenting had assembled an airtight dossier like a federal investigator. I'm completely hooked. Update 1. All right, Reddit, I've now gone through those voicemails, and I must recount what unfolded because this has escalated far beyond anything I foresaw. To start, here's what those packets actually held. Everyone tailored specifically. Winston's included duplicates of each vow he gave my birth mother concerning my upbringing. Vows documented in writing during their joint estate planning. Carol's held captured chats with her congregation buddies, where she confessed wishing it had been me in the vehicle, alongside my mother that fateful day. Julia's enclosed images from her fraternity period that she insisted had been permanently erased. Reese received paperwork outlining the true cause of his dismissal from his initial university, not the sanitized version Carol spread. The fifth packet went to Aunt Bianca, Winston's sibling, detailing a chronological record of every fabrication Carol fed the broader relatives about me across 10 years. Fully customized packets. This individual meticulously crafted tailored devastation for each person like a connoisseur pairing fine wine to ruin. Yes, for Winston, I suggest a classic 2006 Broken Vows. Complements beautifully with widespread embarrassment. But seriously, let's discuss Carol briefly. She informed her faith community she wished the child had perished in the crash with his mom. And documented it to fellow church members. The sheer nerve of harboring such malice while holding some leadership role in that same church is horrifyingly bold. She preached love your neighbor, yet privately thought, but I wish my stepchild didn't exist, and no one questioned it. Aunt Bianca's was the initial voicemail. She directed zero anger toward me. Her rage targeted Carol. She'd long suspected Carol inflated stories about me but lacked concrete evidence. Now armed with dated specifics, she insisted Winston account for himself right there at the table before the entire gathering. Winston's voicemail came second. He attempted composure, yet Carol's shrieks echoed behind him. He repeated we should discuss maturely, that I lacked permission to expose household matters before relatives. Certain topics belonged behind closed doors, he claimed, and I'd stepped over an irreversible boundary. Julia's third message showed her completely unraveling. Her fiancé, Stephen, attended the meal when the packets were revealed. Now he bombarded her with inquiries about those images. She phoned repeatedly, accusing me of sabotaging her existence out of envy for her joy. She demanded to know how I obtained pictures she'd supposedly wiped years prior. Something I hadn't predicted, Uncle Reese, Carol's sibling I rarely referenced, was also present. He loudly recited Carol's faith group screenshots to the room before she could intervene. Apparently, he and Carol nursed resentment for years, tied to parental estate issues, and he seized the chance to shame her openly before Winston's relatives. Winston actually claimed I'd crossed an uncrossable line, as though he hadn't observed his wife violate countless boundaries daily for 20 years. Certain matters should remain confidential. Oh, like the hidden mistreatment you permitted, like the private shaming at countless gatherings. But those never crossed lines, correct? Just routine weekdays, and Julia labeling it envy. Lady, your sibling isn't envious. He possesses documentation. Big distinction. Also, Uncle Reese broadcasting those messages aloud during Thanksgiving is exactly the wild family drama I thrive on. This guy spotted a perfect opening to dismantle his sister and thought, what goes great with gravy? Revenge. Between Thursday night and Friday dawn, Carol bombarded me with 17 messages. She opened with intimidation, shifted to negotiation, then closed by vowing I'd regret my actions eternally. She insisted I had no clue what storm I'd unleashed and claimed she still possessed weapons I hadn't anticipated. That final claim grabbed me. Weapons? What leverage could Carol possibly hold over me? I'd been practically invisible to them for 20 years, yet her certainty made me wonder if she truly had something. Friday afternoon, Winston appeared at my building. Unaware of my precise apartment, he lingered in the garage lot for 3 hours until I returned from my shift. He requested a private discussion, away from Carol. He mentioned aspects I didn't comprehend regarding why he allowed Carol's treatment, matters stretching back before my mother's death. I granted him precisely 60 minutes to clarify. We headed to a nearby cafe. What he revealed alters certain perceptions, though not favorably for him. I require time to reflect before disclosing it fully, but one thing is clear. Carol's mention of ammunition now clicks, and I believe I've deduced her intended strike. 17 messages cycling through every grief stage overnight is pure instability. Intimidation, pleading, renewed intimidation. Carol basically attempted an express run through psychological tactics, and Winston camping 3 hours in a parking structure. That borders on obsessive conduct. Loyalty doesn't earn points after 20 years of zero positive investment, but leverage against someone rendered invisible for 2 decades. What possible scandal could exist about a person you pretended didn't occupy space? It's like claiming secrets about a neglected cactus. The arrogance is staggering. Update 2. Winston's major revelation at the cafe. Here, that's what he shared, and I'm still digesting it. Carol was acquainted with my birth mother, not casually. They shared the same workplace prior to my parents' marriage. Per Winston, Carol pursued him initially, invited him out twice. He declined both before he began seeing my mom. Following my mom's passing, Carol seized her moment. She contacted Winston, offering comfort amid sorrow, gradually inserting herself into our lives. Winston admitted persistent guilt over remarrying swiftly, and Carol exploited that remorse to dominate him. Whenever he attempted defending me, she'd invoke how remarrying quickly dishonored my mother's memory. She persuaded him that granting me equal status would disrespect his original bond, that isolating me preserved the sanctity of what came before. Warped reasoning, yet Winston accepted it for 20 years. Everyone pause. Carol was rejected by this guy, observed him wed another, bided time until that woman died, then eased into the mourning household like, "Hey, remember your runner-up option. I'm available," pure antagonist backstory material. She executed a decades-long strategy on a man uninterested in her, and upon securing him, devoted 20 years penalizing his child for embodying evidence she ranked second. Winston swallowed it completely. Allowing your child basic dignity somehow dishonors your deceased spouse. That logic collapses instantly, yet he passively agreed for 2 decades. Carol essentially brainwashed him until rational thought vanished and succeeded. Here's the darker turn. The ammunition Carol referenced, she possesses correspondence. Letters penned by my birth mother to Winston prior to her passing. Intimate details of their relational difficulties. Content my mom likely intended remain private. Carol discovered them long ago and retained them as leverage. Should I persist, she threatened releasing them to extended kin to tarnish my mother's image and rationalize their treatment of me. I informed Winston that exploiting my deceased mother's personal writings for extortion perfectly justified my actions. He persisted in justifying it as safeguarding everyone, that household dynamics are messy, that I should empathize with his viewpoint. I countered that his viewpoint meant permitting his second spouse to emotionally torment his firstborn for 20 years while he observed passively. Meanwhile, Julia's world imploded. Stephen didn't merely inquire about the images. He delayed their marriage indefinitely. Saturday afternoon, Julia texted, not aggressive now, but pleading. She claimed I'd wrecked all her efforts, that Stephen's conservative family now questioned the entire union. She asked whether I felt content watching her life collapse. I inquired whether she felt content 3 years prior, laughing, as Carol ordered me to sit silently at Thanksgiving. No reply followed. Carol had hoarded a deceased woman's private correspondence as potential blackmail for years. She stored them like, someday I may need to disgrace a woman no longer here. That pettiness defies mortal limits, and Winston's excuse, households are complex? Dude, this isn't complex. You permitted your spouse to weaponize your late wife's intimate words against your living child. That's not complexity. That's spinelessness layered with excuses. And Julia questioning whether I'm pleased destroying her future. Lady, your future crumbled because of choices you made. Those images existed due to your actions. I didn't fabricate proof. I ensured appropriate eyes viewed it. Sunday morning, Aunt Bianca contacted me personally. She requested a meeting. We spoke in her garden while she presented something unknown to me. She possessed wedding photographs of my parents, images I'd never encountered because Winston permitted Carol to purge every trace of my mother from the home at age 10. Bianca retained duplicates. She revealed Winston's relatives had inquired about me for years, yet Carol consistently claimed I chose isolation. Additional deceptions, additional decades of control I hadn't even realized. Then Carol executed her countermove. She forwarded copies of my mother's letters to Aunt Bianca accompanied by a note declaring, "This reveals the true nature of your cherished sister-in-law." Bianca phoned me instantly, asking my preference on handling it. I explained I retained one additional packet, withheld on Thanksgiving as I wasn't certain it would become necessary. Now it was required. Carol truly believed unleashing her ultimate weapon would shift blame to the deceased. Aunt Bianca wasn't about to examine a dead woman's private words and conclude, "Wow, the departed was actually problematic." She reached out to me without hesitation. Carol spent years shaping the story, convincing extended relatives I desired distance, when she'd actually constructed barriers around me one lie at a time. Now she discovers that after 2 decades of playing with flames, you eventually encounter someone armed with both suppressant and accelerant. That final packet is set to conclude matters. Final update, the 6th packet. I preserved it hoping desperately it would remain unused. Its contents rendered everything prior seem mild. 3 years earlier, just prior to cutting contact, while assisting Winston relocate attic containers, I discovered a collection of cards and messages Carol received from a church acquaintance across several years. Highly intimate, deeply affectionate messages from someone unmistakably not Winston. I captured images of each before replacing them, told no one. Stored securely should genuine leverage ever become essential. Carol intended to deploy my deceased mother's personal hardships against me? All right then. Tuesday evening, I drove to her church during their regular community supper. I personally delivered the packet to the pastor's spouse, stating I felt the fellowship deserved awareness of Carol's authentic character before she disseminated further falsehoods concerning my relatives. Oh my goodness, everyone. Carol occupied a judgmental role in church leadership while possessing documented proof of her own extramarital involvement in affectionate correspondence. She genuinely prepared to exploit a deceased woman's private exchanges while concealing her own that would obliterate her standing. That transcends mere double standards. That's arrogance worthy of ancient tragedy. And this individual entered the church supper, presented the proof directly to the pastor's wife, and essentially declared, "Here, who's been directing your women's group." Not even to the pastor. Straight to the wife, that's deliberate, that's calculated, that's 3 years of preparation reaching its most catastrophic execution. Wednesday morning, Carol phoned shrieking that I'd annihilated her existence. I permitted her to rant approximately 10 minutes. She hurled every insult imaginable, claimed I mirrored my mother, labeled me spiteful, heartless, and doomed to eternal isolation from any family. Then I posed one single question: how does it feel having your private correspondence exposed without permission? Silence. I ended the call. Wednesday afternoon, Winston returned to my building. He appeared utterly drained. He reported Carol threatened departure, that church leaders requested she relinquish leadership positions, that Julia faulted him for ever including me in the household. He repeatedly questioned why I escalated to such extremes, why I couldn't simply accept remorse and proceed. I replied I'd spent 20 years accepting remorse that never materialized. I stated he observed Carol degrade me and prioritized his ease over his child's welfare. I noted the vows he offered my dying mother regarding my proper care became meaningless the instant he valued Carol's satisfaction above my safety, and I clarified I desired no apology from him. I wanted him to comprehend that choices carry outcomes, something he should have instilled in Carol long ago. How does it feel having your private correspondence exposed without permission? That question struck home. That question. The quiet that followed carried 20 years of retribution arriving simultaneously, and Winston wondering why I couldn't accept an apology. Sir, produce the apology, located anywhere. None existed. Merely repeated appearances demanding your child silently endure further mistreatment to preserve your convenience. Why escalate so far? Because no one else bothered escalating at all. Somebody needed to demonstrate that cruelty carries a cost. And since you neglected your paternal duty, your child handled it instead. Julia contacted once more on Thursday. Stephen formally terminated the engagement. She relocated back home, unable to sustain her residence without his monetary assistance. She expressed hope. I felt fulfilled observing her world disintegrate. I responded that my satisfaction matched hers 3 years prior when she assisted convincing Carol and Winston to exclude me from Thanksgiving. Reese never reached out. Her Aunt Bianca, he grapples with fresh scrutiny because his mother's public disgrace revives inquiries about him. Aunt Bianca extended an invitation for Christmas with Winston's relatives. She mentioned everyone desired genuine acquaintance with me at last. I replied possibly. I'm unprepared to trust any of them currently, but realizing at least one person perceives events accurately changes the feeling. Carol sent one solitary message yesterday. She admitted underestimating me constituted her error. I left it unanswered. 3 years earlier, they declared my seat belonged in storage where it always should have remained. Now Carol's seat within her church congregation stands vacant. Julia resides again in her old room, wedding canceled, fiancé gone. Winston faces a choice between a spouse who despises his child and a child who will never absolve him. They branded me a worthless embarrassment. They discovered the outcome when that embarrassment decides to retaliate. Happy Thanksgiving. She underestimated me, and that proved her downfall. Carol absorbed the lesson 2 decades delayed. She devoted 20 years treating this individual as insignificant while he quietly gathered, recorded, and prepared. Julia now occupies her childhood space. Carol's congregation averts their gaze. Reese contends with revived controversies. And Winston? He must dwell knowing he disappointed everyone. His original wife, his son, and the household he sacrificed everything to preserve. Happy Thanksgiving.